No varmaan Apiopsin
Apiops, joo.
niin
20 videos. Tässä. Näkyy ainakin slaidit. Just tältä näyttäisi.
Joo, toi riittää.
Eli täällä on. Mitäs lukeekin live nyt, kun on kursoitu?
So we're live. Whatever you talk is gonna go to the YouTube.
Saadaanko tämmöinen sulle sähköpostilla uskotko ottaa tikulle?
So is it good if I get the slides as PDF because I don't have Office PDF. Yeah. PDF works.
Can you try? And it's not PDF, but you should have the Mac PowerPoint viewer, right?
Right, just a few minutes and we'll start. Last minute check. And the file transfers. Chatbots kansiossa vai? Eikö se ole toi UX? Joo. Yes.
Haven't started yet.
No, we're a few minutes late, so all right, I think we can start. And whoever joins us will sit down somewhere, and that's fine. Hi, my name is Jarkko Moilanen. I come from a company called Upin. It's a startup originally from Tampere, but currently also in Brazil and Ukraine and India. And we build API management solutions and tools for managing APIs and how to onboard the APIs as easily as possible. So in other words, we're in the between of the API owners, consumers as the developers. So in between, helping both of the parties to gain maximum out of the APIs. And part of the company strategy is to actually build a bigger developer network around APIs, or how to build APIs, how to manage APIs, and how to consume APIs as efficiently as possible. And this is API Ops. So we took the word DevOps and replaced the dev with the API. So API Ops, how to automate the development and maintenance and everything related to APIs. And we started to expand the network in January this year. Although it was initiated already in 2015, I think it was July or something when we got the idea of this network. But I joined the company in February this year, and I started to grow the company, the community further. And now we're operating in Tampere, in Helsinki, Copenhagen, and Budapest is the same. So we're expanding now to the other countries in Europe. And there's a few slides about the community in a few minutes. But anyway, it's a bigger open source driven community, open community for everyone to participate. Everyone can actually come here, take my spot, and give a presentation about APIs or API utilizing APIs or developing APIs, whatever you want to share with other technical people. So the community is technically oriented, and that's one of the main features of it. We have a website, apiops.net. Actually, it goes to the Medium, but anyway, there's all the content and there's the blog. And this time we have a theme. It's chatbots and then naturally APIs, because a lot of the chatbots use APIs. It's based on API economy, and we're gonna have a few presentations about that topic today. We're going to hear from Antti Törönen, Quark Innovations, about the experiences from chatbot projects, and probably and most likely we'll hear from, how do you pronounce Dennis Sepun. Dennis Sepun from Microsoft about the chatbots and API management, and I have the last slot. If we are not totally wasting the time in the 2 presentations, then I'm going to tell you briefly about one of the onboarding solutions for APIs. It's an API bot. It turns these open API specs into conversations with the developers. So helps in the onboarding of the developers to your APIs. These are the topics for the day. And as it was mentioned, everything goes live to YouTube. And after the event, I will actually cut the presentations into separate presentations in the YouTube channel for later use. So let's see what actually comes in front of us. So, but feel free to actually discuss and interrupt, at least to me. And as it was mentioned, it's a global network we started to build this year, and it's still growing, going strong and becoming bigger and bigger all the time. And there's the basic idea of it. So building standardized API value chain automation. That's the core idea of this community. There's all the hype words now. There's API and there's value chain and there's automation. Well, a lot of those are in there, so it's a good one at the moment. So we probably need to change that in a few years anyway. As it was mentioned, we have the 4 groups at the moment and around 300 members. And the aim is that during 2018, we are going to have at least 2,000 members and 20 groups. It seems like a rather big plan, and we're going to use the Demola network, which is an innovation platform actually in 13 countries at the moment. They have promised that every Demola location will have a API Ops group anyway. And that has been started already, and that's by the way, the Budapest is one of those. Spyware, which is the organization building new next generation platform for several organizations based on APIs, and our API management is part of the Fiverr stack. So actually, we will use their network to actually spread the communities also to all the cities that is going to use the Fiverr solution anyway. This community will actually fund itself. So our company, Upinf, will not pay everything until the end of the world, but we aim to actually to a sustainable model, and one of the incomes is actually having partners from probably mostly from companies interested in the same technology and API economy and platform economy. And for example, today we have 2 of these partners here, Quark Innovations and then Microsoft. They decided to support the community with the packages. But anyway, if you want to know more, there's the short address for the packages. It's publicly, every information about the packages is publicly in the APIOps.net, including the contents of the packages. And basically all the money that actually comes in is either used maintaining the meetup.com, payments for the groups, and also sharing some developer love in form of Amazon gift cards for the speakers or active community members. As it was mentioned, today we have an opportunity to actually give out 2 cards, and let's see, we have a buffer if there's really active people here, so we can actually keep 3 cards. If you become active here, an activity can also be, for example, Twitter or Facebook, but whenever you do use a hashtag APIOps, so it actually can be tracked somehow. And even later, if you really become an active APIOps network evangelist in the, let's say in Twitter, you're gonna get some developer love from us. Okay, APIOps is about technology. API economy is not run by technology alone. We need the business people who actually understand the platform economy and API economy, what to do with the APIs, the reason why we build the APIs, and what it can be actually built on top of the APIs. And that's the sibling community that we have, the Appitalists. they help you to actually understand and build business models for your APIs. So API Ops is a technical community, and Capitalist is the business community of API economy. All of the YouTube presentations are publicly available for everyone. And as it was mentioned, we have a Twitter account and Facebook group as well. But the most information comes from the APIOps.net. So follow that one anyway. There's a plan that we actually have a lot more chatbots focused meetups here in Helsinki after the summer break. So follow the API Ops Helsinki for new meetups anyway. Let's see what Antti and I can come up with after the summer. All right, that was basically the welcome. So brief crash course to what the hell is the API Ops and why are we here? So we're here about building and maintaining APIs, and now hearing some stories about war stories about the chatbots and APIs themselves. And in a few minutes on the stage will be Antti Törrönen, who actually is a digital all-around and a team lead and in working in the work innovations. Is it a startup still or a company?
In the middle of it.
In the middle of it, yeah. And he's an expert in software development, e-commerce management, and dynamic websites, and who knows whatever. But he can fill in the details for his skill set and experiences on the stage in a few minutes. But his topic is the experiences from the chatbot projects. And without any further ado, let's welcome Antti on the stage.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for having me. I'm Antti Törrönen. I'll talk a little bit about chatbots, and basically a little bit about, first I would like to talk about the reasons why chatbots are now emerging, quick crash course on chatbots, and then some experience on building chatbots, as well as how it then relates to APIs. But basically my topic is that chatbots are more about the user experience, and in addition to user experience, API design. So it's just a entry points to different APIs. But let's get more to that in a few minutes. So as Jaakko talked, so I've been working with development for a while. Basically, e-commerce started as a hobby, and then in the last 3 years we have been working on some web components technology for websites and cloud platforms, and more recently these have been used to build chatbots. And API Ops YouTube channel, as well as I will put the slides on our website. The chatbot is a very hot term, trendy term, and fairly long in development, starting from the 60s when there was Elisa, like a psychotherapeutic chatbot. But the main reason why I think that the chatbots are now gaining more popularity is the rise of instant messaging. So if you look at the Finnish Communication Authority statistics, so it's actually used more than email in some age groups. And also instant messaging is used even in the age group over 65 years old. Then some other drivers that realize the rise of mobile internet. So we can use internet everywhere. Instant messaging and mobile messaging is popular, as well as social media has become more important customer service channel. So we are using different kind of text-based services more and more. Then we also have much more APIs than earlier. So we can actually do something with the chatbot. So in Elisa in 60s was just like for fun, discussing about your experience, how the bot can relate to those. And then one of the reasons why many of the big companies are pushing forward the chatbot is the voice recognition technology. So more and more mobile phones have some sort of voice-based assistance, which is then applicable to use with chatbots. And of course, there has been a lot of interest in artificial intelligence, and chatbot like sort of personalizes the artificial intelligence, even if it's not maybe so important for the chatbots. And as we can see, so the interest is rising. Just a quick funny fact, as we are with Microsoft here, so that if you look at the search queries, so it was actually Microsoft's fairly unsuccessful experience with Dave that then created like a lot of public awareness. So basically it was some sort of AI that didn't really work as it was supposed to be. But the funny thing is that actually probably that has been the starting point of the chatbot. So sometimes maybe the best marketing strategies are done by accident. Then if you look at this areas where chatbots are or where there is a lot of interest in chatbots, so markets where this is, and I guess the main reason is the publicization of the APIs by big companies, that they want to focus on these markets where there's a lot of demand, and of course then the languages are people talking in those languages. But anyway, it's gaining popularity also here in Finland, especially we have been noticing in the last 6 months that it's sort of more and more people are recognizing what is a chatbot, and it's not anymore like I need to explain.
Do you see any correlation with the kind of language skills of the bots? Because there are like easier languages and the languages that all the AI and text analysis APIs are supporting, and then there are those that are not supported.
Yes, I think that's one of the main reasons why this, but I don't really agree that this would be a lot of easier. There is a more.
It's just that they are not supported right now.
Yes,
like,
by the big companies, so there is no easy tool to build them. But in my experience, Finland hasn't been, like Finnish isn't terribly difficult to build for those like chatbot purposes. If you even build like a custom model, probably it's difficult to build it like it understands everything, and then you could resell it. But if you build a custom model that understands those things that you need, so it's not terribly complex.
And besides, the language, at least what it provides for the Finnish people, doesn't have to be any academic. It's enough that it's 80% correct. It fills the purpose. It doesn't have to be perfect. Well, if it works, it is used, and it brings value to the customers, they will use it anyway. So that's basically still the only way to actually know does it make any sense? Do the customers want to use it, even though it's not perfect?
Yes, correct. And we have been working mostly with Microsoft language recognition, and also there's a lot of manual, sort of semi-manual work that needs to be done so it understands English. So for example, we need to come up with a list of synonyms, like what people could write when they look like, I want the menu for food items. So it's, but that probably is the reason why there is a lot of interest in some markets that they have been, big companies have built the tools for those languages. So basically, the chatbot is actually an API, like is the topic of this, and then it uses different APIs. So a quick look at the different kind of platforms, for example, website, Facebook, WhatsApp, or different kind of, basically any kind of text-based messaging tool that you want to use. Then we have the chatbot, which has an endpoint that will receive messages from the Facebook or any kind of messaging app, your custom app or email or so on. And usually it needs to use APIs, and a lot of APIs, because chatbot sort of hides the information what it has behind it. So people could ask for a lot of different things, which means that it must have a lot of different kind of information behind it so that it's useful. And as an API, so basically the same kind of security concerns apply. So there can be injection attacks. There can be like someone may try to attack directly the API and so on. One important concern is, of course, that if the user is using Facebook, so he's logged into Facebook. So if people will send links and share links there, so maybe it could be an interesting channel to attack Facebook users by using somehow wrongly your chatbot. Then I quickly look at the technical tools. So I have seen there's a lot of different kind of static chatbot builders, so especially on Facebook. So looking for information, you can ask questions, or it can ask for your email, and then it's related to your email. For example, marketing, asking for leads, and so on. Then the custom chatbots can basically be built on any programming language. I believe Node.js is the most popular here. And of course, then you need to build a series of internal APIs so that the chatbot will sort of answer what you need. And for connectivity, you can build it directly with the Facebook platform and Skype and so on. But as the number of these platforms is rising that support chatbots, so it's probably better to either use some tool like BotKit or Microsoft Bot Framework. So you only integrate once, and then it will integrate to the different channels. And then there is a lot of different kind of tools for the language understanding. We have been working mostly with Microsoft's platform so far, and then also like a simple custom language model that understands adequately what the user is sort of, what is the intent of the users.
So Microsoft doesn't have an actual bot kind of framework, which IBM does. So there's like, you can build chatbots in this program. Isn't there one for Microsoft?
Yes, Microsoft has a sort of a bot framework. I guess Dennis maybe will briefly talk about it, but it's basically they have a connector that will connect to different tools. Then the language understanding, which is sort of like related to the chatbots, but it's also a separate product. And then also a SDK for building on Node.js and Microsoft. So it's sort of, it's one way to organize the dialogues and discussions and so on, but it's not like a, well, it's still like a custom code that you will build with it. Then in my experience, the most challenging thing is when I discuss with clients is that there's so many different kind of ideas on chatbots, what kind of thing it can do. And I guess most of the clients who are interested in chatbots have been sort of what I call introbots. So it can answer some like simple questions, like say, hello, we will serve you in a few moments. Maybe it will answer some questions that you have, like what are your opening hours? And then it will sort of give the control to a human after that. The standalone bots are one that is rising in popularity with the sort of static chatbot builders, especially the lead generation thing or some sort of static information search. But then I guess the most important or interesting ones are information bots and connected bots. So information bots maybe connect to a sensor, read the data, search user guides or documents or so on. And then the connected bots may actually do some transactions. For example, set the temperature of the room, maybe update the password, or maybe you can send your status reports. Like I'm done this task, so what is my next task? So on. And the intro bots and standalone bots, I guess, is a good way to get started, but I guess most of these require then fairly extensive APIs to sort of be useful and take the most benefit. Then related to the language understanding, so the next thing I have noticed with a lot of clients is that the chatbot, like it's chat, so people assume that, okay, I can chat with it, and then we often have some sort of like robot, like icon of a robot, and we think that we can discuss anything. But the language understanding is very limited. So it can understand the intent, what you're trying to say. I want food, so then it will always give you sort of like a menu where you can find food. But maybe it doesn't understand if you want Chinese food or something like that, unless you build it. So usually we have been like sort of separating these styles that you can have a conversational style, you can say anything to the chatbot, and it sort of looks through the sentence, and then, for example, if you are making an order, like you want to purchase something, so it will fill in the different details of the order based on the order that the customer is saying them, and maybe if you want to like, okay, now submit the order, so it will ask for more information. But more popular are the guided ones, so where you are sort of asking like, if I say I want a house, where it asks me for the size of the apartment I need, the city, and if I don't provide like a valid city, so it doesn't go any further. So it will render a high quality information for the next steps of it. But I guess the most important, or the easiest way is sort of to mix these smartly and then like come up with the best approach. The best point about chatbots is that you can sort of see all the time how people are interacting. On a website, you cannot see that. Like you can maybe see where the mouse is moving, but you don't know why they are doing something. But on chatbots, you can see what they are actually typing and then react and develop accordingly. But basically, the mixed interaction model we have been using is that we have a sort of a free-form conversational style on top, like what do you want to do, and then it will go to like a strictly defined dialogue that will ask for the information or actually what is needed for the transaction. And so far we haven't had any very difficult challenges with this, except one that I will discuss in a second. Another one important intro to chatbots is that text is one option, but there has been more and more different kind of user elements. So there's been buttons, you can send GPS, you can send images, you can send voice, and so on. And especially the button kind of style is becoming more and more popular. And then on the output, so we can of course send images and sound and so on, but there has been now like a rise of so-called card layouts. So on mobile, on many chatbots, you are clicking buttons, and then you are getting a visual layout in the form of a so-called card. So it would seem that this is actually moving towards actually like a graphical user interface, so that the chatbot maybe isn't anymore so conversational, but it's actually like a standardized form of a mobile app. Then one learning we had is that like to think about the different kind of like interaction styles. So the easiest one is that we just answer the questions of the user, but then it sort of becomes quite boring to go these kind of discussions when you need to ask over and over again different kind of things. So we have been using this three-step approach to sort of come up with ideas on what we can use. So we have the reactive, then we have the predictive. So for example, if you're on a train, you're arriving to your destination, so we can check out if it's raining. So you don't need to ask for the weather, because if there is a high risk of raining, so you're probably interested in that. Or then we can go further to proactive models. So for example, if you're an e-commerce operator, so you can use the chatbot for pickup of the warehouse products, and when there is any order, so the chatbot can inform you that, okay, now there has been an order, and go pick up on this shelf. And maybe you can even then sort of send the receipt that now I have been packed these items and so on. Then one very interesting topic is the chatbot personality. So if you are talking with, let's say, different kind of user experience experts or copywriters or marketing people, so it seems that the personality is fascinating. But then I would probably urge first to think like if you really need that personality, because interaction will go. So if you have a Laura bot, so you will answer slightly differently than if you call it like document search service. Then if it's document search service, so you understand how it sort of works, you can use Google kind of queries. Well, as if it has a personality. So then you probably, at least a lot of customers will write like a full sentence. Can you please do this for me? Which may not be the ideal end result.
how it will change the kind of analytics on how you can actually understand when you look at the logs that what is the purpose of the user when they are like doing that search, because if it's like only like 2 words and plus, you won't know maybe the intention, so you can't maybe improve the bot as well as you actually had a personality.
Yeah, I think that's very important.
And there is also this like then you can start to hate it and love it. Share that you hate it or love it, which is actually quite important.
Yeah, I think that's a very fun point. So sort of to think about if it's the personality is important for you, not. And then my experience has been like with the personality that you sort of need to build separately a personality, but it's sort of like you can talk about the bot and like who you are and how you are doing. Because if you just ask time, so it's not easy to sort of relay the personality. If I ask
there
your
is that such thing as missed time though, maybe Aika, which was actually a very big thing.
yeah, was it a phone call?
Yeah, it was a phone call service.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I need to look it up.
It's part of the history, so.
Actually, it's
But
still
we
some
remember it.
No, but that's the thing. We do remember it, and people
Yeah.
did use it.
Yeah.
Yes, so maybe everyone will now check out Neiti Aika if it missed time or something like that.
There is also this thing when there is actually a personality, people will actually have kind of a higher level of expectation. They think it's actually, it should be a bit more like a person. So the questions can be more complicated comparing to that. I have seen that because I was trying one bot here, like our frequently asked question. And then people were actually asking quite high level questions, thinking it's a person. Even though in the beginning I was saying I'm just a chatbot, don't have too much expectations from me. But the questions were quite like, it seems they were talking to a person, which was interesting also.
Yeah, I think if you then call it like a FAQ bot, so then for FAQ service, so then people will sort of guess what it may know, but if it's a personality, so.
Yeah, but still it didn't help. Like I think higher for sure.
Yeah.
But I was testing. It was interesting for me to see like what are the questions that are coming. Basically, they were thinking that the bot as an assistant, for example.
But you probably did get more in, like, if they would just have asked like food.
Yeah,
Have
definitely.
food. So.
Yeah, I think that's an important point also in the personal, also the like in the chatbot design, like how you get the feedback and like if the answer was correct or not. But then the main challenge that we have had is with the sort of the simplification of it, because you only can show one thing at a time and you can ask only for one thing. So I guess, well, at least in my opinion, at least I am sort of famous for overcomplicating things and bringing out like 100 different search criteria and so on. So it's just fairly difficult question on how to do it. So on the side you see one design I made for sort of searching trains, which was clearly like sort of over-engineered, like you can get the optimal train, like what is the emptiest or cheapest or so on. Maybe some people would like it, but then for other people, chatbot sort of would need to be able to probably predict based on the history of the user, probably then, for example, optimized based on the number of trains and the available seats and so on. So far I don't have any answer for this question. Basically, that has been so far as like a trial and error. We have come up with some different ideas, but it's like the basic finding is that even a very simple thing, for example, you search free seats in a train, so it's fairly complex to sort of make it usable. So you probably need to just like first test it yourself and have people search it, and then you can sort of like understand the context that people are using it in and doing the searches. And this has also been the main challenge with the different, or at least one of the main challenges with the APIs, that it's we sort of need to fetch a lot of data from multiple sources, and then we need to create the code to, for example, find the fastest train or the cheapest train or the emptiest train or so on. So it, sort of we need to build an API layer on top of different APIs that will do this. But then a few opinions and some predictions, which I think is my final points. So it's that the API management is actually a very big challenge. So first information is that there is APIs, but where they are and who has the sort of the credentials, then how do we secure the APIs? So far, most of them give us like a static password and username, and I'm not sure that is the sort of the secure way for many years to go on.
It is not just for this.
Yeah.
There's studies and recommendations by us.
Yeah. So then the question becomes on how can we sort of get them hopefully under one kind of authentication, so we don't need to implement different kind of authentications for each API and so on. And also we like sort of before we started this event, there was some discussion about the different standards for like geocoding and so on. So there is also some challenges like very basic things that have been challenging. Then one thing I think is that, in my opinion, probably many times the internal use would be more interesting than sort of customer service, because people are contacting customer service or because they have some sort of problems or they need service. And building a bot to those needs is fairly complex. So I guess the bot for API specs is one very interesting internal use case, which Jarkko will show in a few minutes. And then also one important point is that chatbots can be on the web chat, and many people like sort of, because it's called chatbot, so think that okay, web chat. But the platforms like Facebook, probably WhatsApp in the future. At the moment, it doesn't support chatbots, maybe in the future, and Skype and so on. Hopefully, in the future, like Cortana or Siri or things like that are maybe more interesting than the web chat. And language understanding has been like sort of the driving force. Like there's a lot of talk like about the different language understanding tools and so on. But my guess would be that it's probably getting less and less important as people start learning to use these tools. So you maybe have buttons and you sort of understand that I don't need to, can you please tell me what food is available? So you learn to sort of use the keywords like restaurant menu and so on. So in the end, I would like to finalize with the chatbot planning checklist that we have made so far. So I think this would be the sort of the most important ones I would like to learn from a client. So what are the use cases, the value, why people are using it, so possibly like what are the reactive and what kind of predictive we can do, and if there is need or opportunities for some proactive messaging. And then as importantly, like the use context. Are you using it on a, for example, on the street, or do you have more time to think about, or are you using it? Then the personality aspect, if there is a need, or if it can, or if there is a want to like sort of tie it with the company, some sort of mascot or something like that. Then how do you find the bot? So I think this bot discovery is the major lack in the sort of the infrastructure. So there is no easy way to search for bots on your phone. So maybe at some point there will be like you can ask the Siri or Cortana like I want food, so it will sort of give you a list of bots that it will then relate to. Let's see. Then of course, who are the users? What kind of devices do they use? Do they use like the speech-enabled devices or written or mobile phone where you sort of cannot write any long sentences? Of course, languages, platforms like Facebook, and possibly some more interesting. And then of course the external interface APIs that are available. So the APIs actually have been the sort of the biggest roadblock. Like there are a lot of great ideas, but then sort of getting the API and getting the information in a usable format isn't really simple. So thank you for for your interest. So I will put on the slides on our website as well as this, and Jarkko will put this on the YouTube channel. So, yes.
Do you have any examples of chatbots you've built or any use cases like real-time client work that you have done? Feature as an example here.
I'm not sure I have online. I could probably give you some examples. So, but the most interesting we have done is recently with the sort of the trace, with the sort of a technology exploration for VR, which basically the most interesting point was that it was integrated with different kind of sensors. Actually, Mohammed was building some of the sensors so we could sort of track the traffic, who is going on, and so on. But basically, most of our projects have so far been like a technology exploration or then very internal use case. So not so much on sort of customer service channel. We have tested some, but I guess the lead generation is the most interesting topic. There and then some simple like answering some simple questions and sort of introvert style.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments? Nothing?
Very good presentation. Chatbot UX.
Yes. Yeah. This was a good introduction to the subject in details, in my opinion. A lot of crunched information, even for me, even though I've been working with the bots. So this gave me an overview of, and I could actually pinpoint and put myself in some of the spots that, yeah, we're over there, and that's probably something we need to think about a bit more. And it was informative, at least for me. Excellent. Good.
One question from you, because I know you were doing lots of research about the chatbots. In what was this event about the startups? In Arctic 15, there was a guy who was giving a talk there, and he was supposed to be the father of the VoIP, and he was saying, I think in 20 years or something, there won't be apps like mobile apps or web apps. There will be only chatbots, and that's going to be the only basically UI to your services. What do you think?
Well, I think that's sort
about
of
the future, basically.
Yeah, I think it's sort of correct, but then it one like could be that sort of the chatbots become the mobile app. So it's one sort of distribution channel. As there is like the cards, and Facebook especially has been adding a lot of like receipts and airline tickets and different kind of user interface elements. So it's probably just a matter of time when you could sort of build a very app-like chatbot. So I guess it sort of makes sense, but I guess the important things are how do you find the bots and how do you organize them, and also how do you sort of support them, like manage the notifications and so on. So I guess many of us don't want the chatbots to be in our like regular chatting tools, so already need some sort of like separate tab or something like that. But I guess
you
it's
want to activate them specifically, maybe at least some of the bots if they are like more high risk. Like I would say that there is more predictions about the dying of apps because people are basically getting their phones and everything full of them, and the different kinds of devices and IoT are kind of getting rid of the whole concept of app. But then you kind of need to permit, for example, employees to use certain bots in, for example, Skype for Business or whatever. And then also if you, for example, have a banking bot and you have some not so reliable bot for some uses, then you might want to control what bots are in use and when, so that they don't start to chat to each other basically.
yes. Correct, and related, so it's actually the chatbot is a good interface because you can build it once and you don't need to like separate for Android, and so then you sort of use it wherever you are like comfortable using.
What I see, for example, let's say the personal assistants on the phone, like Cortana or Siri, they are basically chatbots, and nowadays they can do lots of things for us. They can check the weather, they can search for us, they can order food, they can order taxi and all those things. And this means they are connected to different services. They only need to connect to all the services, and then we don't need the other apps anymore. If we can order Uber through them, then we don't need the Uber app anymore. The only thing that we need is that we let our personal assistant connect to that service or to our bank or whatever, and we just go through the chatbot and it will do everything for us. So this is what I would see maybe the future, that the personal assistants will connect to all those tools in the background, and we will only talk with one of them, which is maybe the personal assistant, because there is a power behind them, for example, the companies. And then the rest is basically we won't use any other apps. This is my view.
Yeah, that actually raises a very interesting question. Maybe it's a question for Jarkko. So, sort of, if you want to order a Uber, so sort of who decides if it's Uber and how sort of you market that it's Uber and not the local taxi company? And maybe I guess it's a question also like how APIs compete, like whose API are you sort of
It's about platforms basically, because there's like platforms that are going to be integrated to like basically Google or Microsoft or others are platforms. So what is the ecosystem of that platform and what kind of agreements have been made behind? And do you use the same platform for and the same chat enabled thing assistant for personal use and for company use? Right now you don't, basically. You can't, you are not allowed.
Yeah, for example, the Uber and Boop and whatever those are, for example, the new taxi models or business models for taxi, running taxis is I agree with her that it's about platforms. And one example that I'm involved with is a platform that's going to be built in Lappi, in Lapland. It's a platform where the services are consumed by the travelers, and they want to get to the services, for example, to ski or to see the Nordic lights or whatever, and getting there is just something that you need to do. And the idea of that platform in the Lapland is actually to combine the mobility, what is it, MaaS, mobility as a service to the services. So bundling those together, and in those cases, when let's say a Chinese person to see Northern Lights in Rovaniemi in Finland, and the person is using, let's say, Alibaba, the webshop. Actually, all the information in the webshop and the package comes from the same platform, which is in the Lapland, and it contains the traveling information, including the flights and the local traffic or getting to the hotel from the airport. And in those cases, it's most likely that the end user actually decides, just selects, I want to use this kind of taxi, or I want to use the public transport, I want to use the bus. And then the person probably needs to go to different places in the Rovaniemi as well, and they can select all from there and pay once. That's the idea, and for that, a platform in Lapland, and it's not going to be just Finland, but it's all including the Sweden and Norwegian as well, and probably some parts of the Russian, because we need to take into account the traveling from the roads and everything else. But it's not going to be like a huge platform we used to talk about. We only talk about the giants, but there's going to be plenty of platforms that actually are built aerially and serve up for a specific purpose to actually, and in this case, actually get more people to Finland and to bring more money to Finland. It was a long story, but I just wanted to, I had to share it.
But how's that different? Like, I think what I'm getting a little bit, what Mohammed says is, doesn't that build a case for WeChat with like one overarching personal assistant, which will be owned by the big guys like Apple with Siri or Alexa, and because those are the interfaces that we have access to that are controlled by the device manufacturers. So these underlying services, no matter how like focused they are, they're just gonna basically give.
But that depends on if they are giving or if the manufacturers are basically, the big ones are giving access to like
To
right now there's this,
Siri.
yeah, because right now there's like this app store concept. So when is there going to be a chatbot store? I mean, that's kind of the idea. If you have, like, otherwise they need to do the kind of integration work, or it needs to be plug and play.
Yeah.
So
I
that's a
think
question
it'll
of
go
who's
towards
going to
standardization,
yeah,
standardization
exactly.
of the APIs, which your organization is in the process of doing that. But once it gets that mature, it's just that everyone's building services on top of this.
But
And
that's a
services
question.
on top of those.
Yeah, and that's a question of kind of APIs as kind of a core resource. Can they really be standardized, or is it actually the chatbots that are
Which
possible
layer
to
is
standardize?
Yeah,
Because
which
right now
layer?
it's like the chatbots that are more standard than the actual APIs.
Well, I guess it has to do with the monetization model.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
It all depends on the monetization model.
But it's also, it means that because they need to be localized, there needs to be kind of a standard component to the user interface and to the kind of language and interaction component. So that's why I would say the chatbot is more likely scenario than the actual raw API.
Because
I
it's
can
more
be
usable.
wrong, but,
Because it's just more usable.
Yeah,
It's more usable.
yeah, it's just more plug and play and can be nearer to the users.
Well, then here's my other question. Where's the middle layer then? Meaning that what I see, like using the Microsoft platform or using the Facebook platform to build a bot on top, where do they fit into this? If they're not the APIs, then they're going to be monetized. Like, what are they?
Yeah, the chatbots basically one-time components, and the ecosystem is there that if there's like text analysis or AI or other components, then that is what I'm seeing in my customers, for example, that they're basically choosing their platforms based on the ecosystem, based on what components are there, what is the payment world of the platform for the runtime, what is the security model for that. Publish the chatbots from there, then the chatbots can be used for wherever. So the question is that there's kind of these distribution platforms like the phone stuff and whatever, and then there's the kind of runtime platforms.
So do you guys see these chatbots, these fragmented chatbots for every kind of needs that I would have a personal chatbot, full personal chatbot for taxis, and they would all be in my WhatsApp application, or would it just be Siri or Alexa who's their own?
Well, that's where we are now. That's almost like a few steps from where we are now. So first we have to build all native chatbots, or at least that's where we are. Everyone just said, "Oh, my customer wants chatbot." So that's where like what's out there to make money. But where it's going is to be decided based on your question. Like we'll see who wins the fight. It's basically whoever gets more adoption is going to get. Facebook, people love some people love using the Slack bot.
I think that there is going to be kind of two things going on, because there is this concept already that you have whatever apps somebody has chosen for you, depending on what platform you're using. And then there's the thing where you can pick your phone full of whatever you want to specifically use. And then your company says that, oh, by the way, you need to use these when you're working with us. So I think there's going to be different models.
All right, the discussion is rather interesting, but let's move on. And let's have another meetup about the chatbot wars. Thanks again, Antti, and Dennis just arrived, if I understood correctly. Did excellent. But again, thank you. And
Thank you very much.
you did your job. You gave us information, and you initiated a big discussion, almost a debate. We were going to the debate, so I stopped it for that. Excellent. Thanks.
Your new name is Bot Police.
No, I prefer the capitalist. That's I like it. It's challenging enough. So, all right. Next up is Dennis from Microsoft. By the way, I didn't ask these persons how I would actually introduce them, so please correct me or fill me in if it's totally wasted. But he's a senior technical evangelist and a lot of stuff at the Microsoft, and is an expert in technology for over 25 years. So probably same age with me, because we're about, I'm also
26.
yeah, I'm 26. So, and we're at the Microsoft Flux at the moment, one of those, I think. And Dennis is the person, one of the persons at least behind that. We have these kind of facilities to have this meetup now, and he's also the founder of Microsoft Garage Finland. So, and a lot of other stuff. He can fill in details his preferred items actually, and his topic is obviously chatbots, but this time it's with another flavor of API management, which was, by the way, mentioned in the previous presentation, that it's one of the challenges when you're building APIs, chatbots, and how do you actually manage the APIs, and we'll hear about that from the Dennis.
Well, yeah.
Come here, come as close as you can and stay here. I have your presentation here.
I think so. Do we have it over here?
I have it.
Okay.
Somewhere over
So
here.
actually, just to make a slight adjustment on that, I will actually not be talking too much about API management, because I don't actually have slides on that, and this is actually the first time I heard about API management to be a topic. So, but otherwise, on the did you cover already cognitive services and stuff?
Not very.
Okay. Shallow. Okay. Good. So this is mostly going to be chatbots, cognitive services, and so on. So thank you for the introduction. That was wow.
Just a second. I need to
verify that it's actually presenting over there on the line. Yeah. Yeah. Seems to be good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and we are
ready to go.
Yay. I'm gonna touch your Mac.
Yeah, you get that.
Is it gonna fry me, or am I gonna fry it?
Let's see.
Okay. So very briefly, that was a perfect introduction, actually. So I'm a technical evangelist at Microsoft. I basically work with the startups and with new technologies that Microsoft releases. So we work on these Ascent cases. We basically try to publicize the cool, new, innovative ways on how to use technology. And parts of that is actually presented here. So that's cognitive services and what we are actually trying to do with this. I'm going to mention three things, basically. Cognitive services as a whole, what does it contain, how to use that. I'm probably going to spend like 20 minutes maybe around this. I don't want to go too deep. If you want to know more, just reach out to me, and I can actually give you a demo and show you to the right direction how to try these services and so on. So cognitive services is one. Azure Functions is second, and Azure Logic Apps is the third. And to very briefly go through these, the whole point of this cognitive services that we're offering is to make it very easy for you to actually create apps quickly, easily, and affordably. So we basically offer the full stack of vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search. Vision basically sees and has intelligence, so it can actually detect things. Speech recognizes speech by identifying speakers, different languages, beyond accents, beyond any kind of context. It can actually understand what you're saying and then pass it forward. Language processing, detection of inappropriate language, detection of intent, what the users are trying to say. Knowledge, tapping into the databases, into the data sources like Wikipedia, like social media, like your own databases. Then search, which actually has the Bing APIs. We do know that in Europe, Bing is and not really used, but it basically uses the same search algorithm that can be used across your own applications. And then Labs, which has a new emerging concepts. But this technically basically means, so are all of these different services beneath each of the each of the main pillars, and they all fall under cognitive services. And how do you use this stuff? Basically, wherever you're creating the app, it's just a REST API call. That's as simple as it is. All of these are available from Azure, and you can basically set them up in any of the data centers that you want across the world. Some of them are more limited than the other ones, so some of the services may not be yet available in, for example, Western Europe, while they first come to West US and then they flow across the world. And how we publicize these and what do we actually do is we create the services, we launch them. So for example, everything that you see under labs over there, we publish that for free for some time, which is usually 3 to 6 months, which lets people try the services, see if this is actually usable, if this makes sense. And then after that, we do a priced model. Usually the priced model means that you get something for free. So for example, when we are doing, for example, what do I say? Let's say translation, you get like 20,000 free translations, and after that you start paying like a few cents or parts of a cent to actually do some things. And like I said, the whole idea is that this would be as easy as possible, that it is completely flexible, so you basically can use it from any surface that you want. So for Node.js and C#, we already have pre-made samples. So if you go on the site, you'll actually see the samples. You can directly try them out. If you want to use something else, you can find open source components of that. And our whole attitude in the past 4 years has been that let's open source everything. And if you follow the news, we have been one of the, or not one of the top contributor of open source on GitHub past year. So basically all the stuff that we build around the cognitive services, around the Azure services, we publish as open source so that people can actually use that, rebuild something on top of that, and do something, build something completely new and innovative on top of the core services that we provide. And that's basically our business model. We want to provide that core, and you build whatever you want to build on top of it. I want to show that. Now, I want to highlight on a few things from each of these. So Vision, which I personally think is really super cool. Vision is actually, I don't know, I'm kind of debating on which one is the coolest one. Vision has obviously the computer vision, which allows you to detect people, detect emotions. You can detect real live streaming images. So basically, if we have a camera filming people over here, I can get real-time statistics on how interested are people in certain topics, how they're feeling, and basically get a sense of the crowd. So that's Emotion API and Video API. Then we have stuff like Content Moderator, which allows you to filter out either inappropriate content based on a very simple parameters, or actually identify the content and filter it based on what do you want to have. So let's say, for example, that you have a website, and on that website you're uploading only pictures of cats, and only pictures of cats are appropriate. So what happens is you let people actually upload the image. When the image is uploaded, it goes into the blob storage, and this requires 0 servers, 0 infrastructure in the back. Oh, okay. So it works. Okay. So so they upload a picture of a cat, or let's say that somebody goes really mean and uploads a picture of a dog. What happens is the picture goes, stores in blob storage, goes for the content moderator. And content moderator comes back with a text. Hey, this is a picture of a dog. And what you're looking for is within that text, you're actually looking at, is there a word cat in this description? And just pick up, oh, there's a cat. Okay, this is fine. This is a cat picture. This is a very easy demo. I have it actually on my machine. I can show that. I'm actually, if you're interested in that demo on stage, actually with the content moderator. And that's super cool because it gives you a textual representation of what that image is. It's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty darn close. So, and then this one, the custom visual server, actually, let me jump that. Video indexer actually allows you to do, if you're doing any video image processing, to do actual live image editing, so it can actually index the video on specific parts. But the really cool one is the custom vision service, which in our example, for example, you can film this table over here and do custom vision pattern on it and basically say, hey, this is what a Samsung phone looks like, this is how Crestron device looks like. And after that, you can go and ask the cognitive services, where is the Crestron device? And it can actually locate it across different rooms, spaces, whatever it is monitoring. The only things that you actually need to provide it after you have done the custom vision recognition for it, you actually need to provide it like a video feed, and it can tell you, there's the device, there's what you're looking for. And it's one of the samples that we are actually trying to implement over here in the Makers Hub, which would allow you to say, it's like, where is that 3D printer? And it's like, oh, there's the 3D printer. So you can actually highlight that this is the device that you're looking for. The speech used together with the Translate API basically allows you to go through 84 different languages, so you can basically speak in any language, or you can even do custom speech service, so that if you want to support any languages that are not supported here, you can actually use that. And then through the speech recognition API, you can basically just pick up what is the text. And then, like I mentioned there, the translation over here basically allows you to translate that text from anything to anything. Now, obviously, translators are not very good, but when we're talking about the context of bots, the bots really need to understand what the user means. It's not 100% translation that matters, it's that the bot actually understands. So how we tested this, we basically said in a few languages, like, people don't say, hello, I will need insurance. Nobody's gonna type that. They're gonna type, yo, give me insurance. And that can actually be recognized by a translator in whatever language, and from there it actually flows into LUIS, Language Understanding Intelligence Service, which you teach. It's basically teach based on the certain questions and patterns that what the user is actually looking for. And we tested this with some really crazy sentences, and it's surprisingly accurate to pick up on what the user's actual intent on some of the cases are. So on the knowledge, just very quickly, I want to highlight one of the things over here. So we have recommendations API, or actually two things. Recommendations API, which does that very famous product recommendation. So it basically goes and analyzes your data, and then based on the other consumer patterns, recommends something for you. But the coolest thing from the knowledge the stack is the Q&A maker, which is zero effort, I made a bot. So this is zero code, purely clickable user experience. So you point Q&A maker to an existing Q&A, to a web page, to a website, and let it learn. And it will basically build questions, intents, everything for you, and actual answers to those questions. So using that, you can basically go from zero to a functional bot in only a few minutes. And we have actually done this when we met with our customers. We go for a meeting. Some of us are showing on the stage, okay, this is how you would use a bot. And while we are talking, we do the same demo. So another person is actually writing the whole thing, and then we actually can show them on their own data, this is how this bot will actually look like, because it literally takes like 10 minutes to create. A couple of others from the Bing search, even though I'm fully aware of the, how would I say this, slight limitations of the Bing search engine. The things that you usually would require from it, it is actually pretty okay to use in this context. So for example, if you need to pull a picture of a cat, Bing Image Search API, or if you need to detect or find similar images, or find suggestions or something, then all of these are basically just purely usable. You just use the query from there. But I don't want to stack too much on that. Now, this is now from the lab, so this is now a few projects which are actually being worked on. These are not public, these are preview cognitive services. So we have stuff like gesture-based controls. We have score location attractiveness and so on. So these basically can be tested out at this point. I don't want to talk too much about this because they will eventually change even more as the time progresses. But I think that was the highlights of that. Basically, if you want to start using any of those services, then it's basically microsoft.com/cognitive. And this is how you basically use the services. Now, I promised I'm going to talk about two more things. I'm just going to check my time. Okay, I have a few minutes left. So, so this is cognitive services. All of this you get as a platform. No infrastructure, no nothing, you just use it. Now, when we're talking about your applications and building that bot, you already had a chat about the bot framework and how that allows you to create this structure that allows you to publish to any platform. So basically, building that chat into any service. Now, beyond this, what happens is that you would use some of the cognitive services, but you have files to be stored, you have some data to be stored, you want to retrieve something, you have customer data. So how do you manage all of this? Are you all familiar with this serverless, basically, points of the serverless? Yes. Okay. So Azure Functions is basically serverless model, which allows you to deploy just the code and run the code. So we have actually two different models how you can do this. So you can do Node.js, deploy Node.js over there, and we provide around 20 different triggers that will trigger your functions to execute some events or trigger to execute some code. And those, for example, can be just a simple HTTP request or a file dropped into a blob storage, or basically any kind of interaction coming from the user to any of the services. Some of the common ones that we use is, for example, our event hub. So when we have IoT devices send this little piece of information, it flows directly into the event hub, and then we have functions triggered based on the event hub events. Now, why is this interesting? The Node.js code can be deployed as such, run as such, only on demand, and you're basically paying $0.00014 per gigabit second of the executed code. So very basically nothing, and you're paying only for the code that's being executed. Now this is for all of the functions. Now, as I said, you can develop it with Node.js, but there's another option. If you're familiar, and I know that most of the people, unfortunately, we meet in startup space are not familiar with C# or using C#. With C# we can actually do one more cool thing, which apparently not a lot of the platforms can do. You can actually do local debugging of these things. So how this works is from the Visual Studio, you create your C# function, and it is actually compiled into a DLL. And we actually, the whole Azure Functions runtime is run on your machine as it is run in the cloud. It's one executable, it's running on your machine. So on your machine, pressing F5 will turn the debugger on. And the cool part is this, that function runtime is actually tapping into the same events in the cloud. So when I'm dropping a file, if I have an issue in production and a user calls me that, hey, I upload the file and it doesn't get processed and there's an error and I don't know what's happening. You don't want to start debugging in production, and it's really sometimes difficult to catch the data, what's happening. Now with this, you can actually start it on your own machine, and it's going to be listening for the cues, for the triggers, for anything that is actually happening in the cloud, and react on those. And now, how does this actually relate to all the rest of the things? You basically then connect all of these little functions that do different things. So these small black boxes that take input and put something out. And this is actually the other cool thing. We're not limiting what's the output of functions. You can basically output anything, you can do anything, you're pretty free to do whatever you want. Now, how do you tie these functions together? Through logic apps. Logic apps basically is a drag and drop style interface that allows you to build a workflow of different functions and of different stuff that you want to be executed. So going back to the example of the cat upload service that I mentioned a second ago. So how does the cat upload service architecture for this bot look like? I have a chat interface in Facebook. My user starts chatting with me. I have dialogues popping up, and it allows me to categorize some information. And now the user wants to upload a picture. At this point, I have 0 backend still existing because everything is running through the services. When he uploads the picture gets picked up directly into the blob storage, which gets stored into the queue. Runtime is actually listening to the queue and then processing the image based on that, and then responding back to the bot, hey, this is what happened. So all of this was actually built without basic infrastructure. So all the servers are gone, and even platform as a service is already starting to become old from our perspective. So if you can split it into these small pieces that you can track, it makes a lot of sense. The cool part comes from the kind of the management of all of this is that, okay, like in the first slides, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I'm kind of in my mind, I'm also used to like monolithical applications, ERP systems and such. So, okay, let's split it into 50 different little pieces. How the heck do I manage all of this? Now, this is where actually the application insights and API management comes into place, which allows you to have an overview of the whole stack of your functions, and it actually builds this for you. So when you publish all of these different services, it's actually going to display one single view of end-to-end how the application flows. So every time that there's a fault somewhere in this chain, the application insights actually stops it and says, hey, there's a red box over here, it tracks what's happening and so on. The cool thing about that, it actually doesn't require any code. It requires that you put an instrumentation key so it knows to where it is writing, and then it's just picking up your trace logs, and that's it. So it knows what's happening for the services. That was, I think, my 20 minutes. Any questions?
I think a lot of people are overwhelmed by the information and the amount of APIs you just gone through in 20 minutes.
Yes, I tend to do that. I'm sorry. So I usually pour like a shitload of information. It's like, here you go, do something with it, build something cool. So the easiest way is, if you remember Microsoft.com/cognitive or aka.ms/cognitive, start trying out these services. The cool thing is all of the services actually have their own test pages on the site directly. So if you want to try the image recognition, speech recognition, the language translation services, anything like that, you just go in there. There's a box where you upload the file or enter the text or do anything there, and you can actually try it out from there. And if you need the code sample, just tap on the Node.js code sample, and you can get started from there. If you actually want to start building something with it, if you're a startup, we give you BizSpark for free, and you get to use all these services for free. If you are not, you get to start using the services for free for a month, and after that, it's basic normal pay-as-you-go model. And since all the services are based on how much you're actually consuming, you shouldn't consume a lot when you start using them. But if you're a startup, I highly encourage you to sign up for BizSpark program. It's a no commitments program, which allows you to get up to $120,000 in Azure credits to use basically on any services that you have there, so you can deploy all of the stuff. But for me personally, the kind of the intelligent things that actually can, to us even when we were testing like last week, the amazement from the people that came when we were doing the translation and the customer requested we need to support Finnish, English, Russian, Swedish. And then we go like, no, we actually support all of the languages. And then people started typing in like German, in Bosnian, and like, oh my God, it responds, it knows everything. And it's just basically because it's a one translate API, you send a message to it will do automatic language detection, and then it goes through Lewis, and then through Lewis it actually comes back like, hey, this is what the user meant. At that point, you know what was the language of the request. And if you're prepared, then you have your resource files which will have translations, and you can give an answer to the user basically back in the same language. If not, then you just default to English or any other language. So, hey, sorry, I don't speak that language. I understand what you mean, but I'm not quite proficient in saying it. Or if you really want to go a little bit risky, then you can translate your English translations directly and push them out. But that's, I would not recommend that. That's edgy. But hey, just go double translations.
Been there, done that, failed.
Yes, yes, that is a short path to user going like, huh? So I put the horse where? So yeah, no, so that's the whole story. I would encourage you to try them out. Like I said, they're all free for you to try out, and if they suit your needs, I think that's pretty cool. Also, on the topic of the bots, still one more thing. We have a service called Bot Discovery, which basically has all the bots that have been published on top of the Microsoft Bot Framework. And a lot of them are available through Skype. Some of them are available on the web pages, but if you want to try it out, that's a good place to start. And I don't know, have Antti already mentioned this, there's just one topic that I still want to touch on very briefly. We're not trying to make the natural language pure Turing test winning bots in any of these cases. What we are aiming for is to solve a problem that the users are having, and that's why the services are like that. So, I mean, you can spend years just like fine-tuning that conversation model, but instead it's much easier to actually use stuff like dialogues and prompts and cards and stuff like that to actually guide your user through this experience, and then try to somehow anticipate what they're looking for, what they want to do. If you require something more, so basically you have the cognitive services, they will have some intelligence, but let's say that you want to learn something from this whole user experience, from the engagements, you can basically package all of the data and put it into the Azure machine learning, which basically then can do pattern analysis and give you some output until you can write your own scripts in R or Python and push it out. But that's then a little bit more advanced if you really want your bots to be super intelligent. That's it.
Excellent.
I'm done. I think I didn't have anything. No, that's it. I had another slide, but slide deck, but I think I talked through everything that I wanted. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yay.
All right, then we have one more speaker, and that's basically me. Just a sec.
We can have also short breaks to have the time.
Well, yeah, let's have a let's make it a 10-minute break. So it's now for 2:30, 2:40. We'll start 2:40. So I'll be 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, and then we're done.
Se ei vaan toimi. Joo. Mä en ei. Koska mä nyt taas kokeilin, mä muutettu siis sen, että se ei toimi. Se oli rakentaa jotain, mikä momento
Mistä
pitää
aloittaa?
antaa.
Mistä
Joo,
lähdet?
se oli
Mulla on sama
siis mikään semmoinen niinku
kun siitä pääsee, niin sitten sieltä tulee.
siinä oli se teksti, missä oli suhteetta tekstoria ja joku paljon, mutta sitten se puuttui se, että alkuista tästä.
Niin, jos laittaa se
Tämä on säälistä. Aina tämä.
läpi, niin. Näin toi. Sen jälkeen se voi mennä vapaasti.
Siis pelkästään se, että kuvauksessa se, että try list nämä asiat. Sitten käyttää pystyy eteen.
Okei, näin.
Vähän sinne, sehän on se just se liiste, missä siinä ei tarvitse kohdata.
Niin.
Hän olisi joku
Valpaikka. Se on samoin. On verifioitu.
Kyllä.
No minä.
Joo.
Sä oot viihtynyt uudestaan. Vähän on varmaan sisäajassa vielä.
Siis mä oon niin sikana sisällä. Joo, mä tonen.
Hei, olis sun kautta tossa?
Noin on.
Onko sä ottaa sellaiset Apetolist ja Happy Ops kahvaa?
Ootas.
Se,
Tämä.
mitä helvettä, onko sä ottanut meidän paitojen väreistä?
Toi on ihan eri värinen kuin täällä.
Ihan hyvä.
Joo. Ei.
Teilläkin oli vaaleanpunainen vai? Teilläkin oli punainen.
Joo, se Sanna on punainen. Ja mä oon Jarkko Varkis naureskelija, että taannutkaan Apetolista vaan Happy Ops. Niinpä.
Minkä tyyppisessä etuissa sä itse työskentelet? Onko se just näin, että sä oot niinku tekniikan? Että työskenteletkö nimenomaan tekniikan?
Mä oon siis nimenomaan tekninen henkilö. On projektipäässä.
Joo.
Seuraavaksi hyvä, että ylläpidetään.
Joo.
Hei, onko sulla se niin erityyppisiä botteja, niin se on hyvä, että se on esimerkkejä tyyppisiä botteja ollut. Helsingin kaupungilla on sellainen lounas-botti tuolla Slackissa. Se on lounas, joka on kanavalla, se on lounas. Se on varmaan reaktiivinen botti. Jos olisi kuullut muista jotain, niin tulisi hyviä ajatuksia.
Joo, kyllä, mutta se on niin spesifiästi kuitenkin, jos VR, kun tehtiin silloin, milloin saapumisen proaktiivinen malli ja saatosen lähtenyt. Mistä niin lähtee vaihtoehtoja tälle hetkelle? Tämä on tossa just se paha, että kun on tulee niin, ja se on ehkä vaikea niin lähteä sitä, ainakaan vielä löytyy sellaista mallia, että voisi lähteä tekemään. Joo. Kaivamaan.
On sellainen uusi juttu kuitenkin, että hommaa niin mielenkiintoisia juttuja.
Joo, kyllä. Ja sehän tuossa niin ajokia sieltä. No web-pisit kuitenkin verrattuna niin aika paljon nopeammin pystyy rakentamaan.
Niin.
Ja jossakin puolet menee vaikka se oikeastaan siihen ruuvaasuun. Se jää ainakin tuossa toista.
Mutta mielenkiintoista setti.
No niin, tässä oli.
Hey, did I meet you? Was it the global integration at Composure that I met you? Or I've seen you, we've seen each other, I believe.
Yes, maybe at Woodcrack.
Yes, you, okay. And you were there with your team? Or no, you were doing something else?
Well, sort of. It was sort of, like we were, I don't really know how it then turned out, but yes, we then decided to build our team anyway. Like it was like we were sort of accepted our idea, but then sort of Ultra have accepted, but then sort of the partner declined. So then sort of we're thinking like, if you can continue on that, then just continue with that sort of.
Which one you were doing machine learning?
Yeah.
Which one were you doing?
Which we were doing this job search.
Job search. Yeah. Machine learning. Okay. And I didn't get to see you guys because I presented and then ran to the airport. Yeah.
So John, how was your?
We did okay. I mean, I think it was good just to get to kind of start to build a team, kind of, because myself and two of the other guys, we do this machine learning and big data analysis. We just finished a course that went for like a year and a half. So it was good for like a couple of us to get together and see how to commercialize the idea. And like what I'm doing now, I'm like doing media consulting and stuff, and it deals with a lot of e-commerce because it has to do with the automated marketing funnel, social media selling, and the chatbots are something I want to be able to offer, but I don't have the facility. Like I played with the Microsoft one and built something, but I haven't done anything useful to sell, and I think that's where you are too.
Yeah, but we don't actually aim to build like sort of chatbots to sell. So we basically sell custom chatbots for companies. So like it's a billing service.
Yeah, exactly. Just building the service for here. This is what do you guys want? Boom. You can keep on going development. I don't know. How many of you guys are there?
That's 4.
4 of you guys. I'm going to the US like next week, and I have a few meetings, and I would love to have something like that on the table at all. Because I know that would be a big, like, people eat it up. They would eat it up. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. It sounds really interesting. So you do mostly like marketing.
Like basically like the convergence of digital marketing to e-commerce. Right there. That's where I try to focus on. So give them strategies and like ways to build their audience and also create more engagement. They want to do brand recognition. So I kind of touch on all the points of the funnel and then see where I think they can improve or what they're doing wrong, where they need to focus. Because I mean, it's just no one's an expert in it. Like everyone's bridging, and there's so much convergence, and there's a way to do it. Like you don't have to do everything. You shouldn't do everything. They're just like, oh, this is new. We should jump on Snapchat. Listen, your population you're targeting is 65-year-old women. You don't need to be on Snapchat. Yeah. So last summer I did a good like 2.5 months at this branding company in New York, and that was really nice. But like 2 of my contacts there both left and started their own thing, their own consulting, and they know I'm coming back in the summer, so they're like, dude, like, don't go there again. Come to us, like we can do better. So I'm thinking about that, and then I'm wrapping up my thesis now in like basically political communication, social media interaction, and like voter turnout and stuff like that. And I have 3 meetings in DC, so it's like a train ride away. I hit those 3 meetings in one day, and it's really like low-level congressmen, nobody big. But they're younger guys, and they want to like really engage with the younger voters. Yeah. So they really want to use the digital platform. And I think like cutting edge like chatbots, I'd be like, look, you guys have no money. You don't really like have a simple chatbot. It would be cool.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, it's stuff like that. Like I'm trying to get my hands in as much as I can, but I know how much I can do. And it would be better if I could plug something like, this is what we're going to do, this is the contract, blah, 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 we're going to have this facility in there, and then be like, hey, putting it together. So it's really like partners and stuff like that. Like I can sell it, that's not a problem, but I need to have some, like.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting use case, like sort of, like you mean like facilitate the communication between the borders.
Yeah, well, it's not even to facilitate. A lot of the times, the politicians have a policy, they have a stand on the policy, but they're afraid to, like, they say it in a loose way. Like, you ask me one question, and I answer with some complete nonsense, but that's their,
principle.
yeah, with the principle, that's their line. So if you could like respond in that way or in some of those communities, and this is the official line, you would like more going this way, it's like, you know what I mean, just to touch on it, so people look at that, because they have no way to, and what's really good too is the analytics behind it. They can see where people are interested in what, so if they go to these talks, they can be like 5 people who are asking about this. But no one, but like, rather than going here where they don't care about that. So that's one of the values for them. That's what I thought about for the politicians, but that's what I want to offer to them. And I'm doing it through retargeting and things like that. And like just using the basic Facebook now to do that. But if I could have that interaction, follow the breadcrumbs, it's definitely something. And you, sir, I would like to be an ambassador.
For API ops.
Yes,
Definitely.
I'm going to the US like next week, and I would like to do a meetup events real quick and just do a little talk. Last time I was there, I did something at IBM with Watson. One of my friends is there, so he let me get a couple of minutes on the stage, but I think the Chatbots is good. And I think I could pull it off and, you know, raise a profile, let people be aware, and then, hey, that's my meeting. So,
Definitely. Drop me an email and let's have a Skype session or something else about the topic.
where are you located? Where
I'm
are you?
in Tampere.
Every time I see you, you're coming down.
Good, but not in
Okay. I'm going to Tampere, near Tampere this weekend.
Or maybe you could put the invitation there.
We'll manage it.
All right.
That's why the co-founder of you. Yes.
Let's connect. Let's do it.
All right, let's start in a minute and continue with the topic of chatbots and APIs. I just handed out one of the stickers that you actually, not the audience is not gonna see in the YouTube, but a sticker for the API community. Does anyone else want a sticker to put somewhere? You don't seem to put any stickers on your laptop anymore. I fill it. I'm an old school guy, so I fill in the laptops every time with the stickers. So if someone wants to have it, feel free.
What about the Apple list? The Apple list.
I ran out of those, but I can get you one. Those are at the Tampere office at the moment.
I like that name.
Yeah, that's cool name. Our CEO went to the States to talk with the money man in Manhattan, and he met some bankers there, and he mentioned this API ops and talked about it a little bit. Yeah, sounds good. But then he mentioned that there's a sibling community of capitalists. Immediate laughter from the people who are the money makers. So it fits in perfectly. So that's why I stick with it instead of API police. So I'm capitalist anyway. I prefer that one. But anyway, all right. On the last speaker, and I promised to be rather brief. It's an example, case example of API bot, and I work in the AppInf as a chief capitalist. I have a few junior capitalists with me, and we go to companies actually to help the companies onboard API economy and understand the platform economy. And their purpose, the company's purpose might be that they want to participate to some kind of platforms, offer their services or APIs, or they want to build their own platforms. We are there to actually assist them to get started. And I do have some experience in running startups and some businesses. And my background is in open source communities where I've enjoyed my life for past 15 or 16 years now. And I love communities. That's why I started the API Ops and Capitalist as well. My own experience, the specialty that I'm obsessed with is the developer experience. So I'm more prone to be with the developers than with the suits or the Excel people. So more with the developers, and that's where I love to be. But it fits perfectly because knowing how the developers want the APIs to be offered and onboarded helps the API producers, which are the companies in there. So it benefits all. That's briefly about me. And you can find me in Twitter on this mysterious Kuberi, which is my ex-IRC nick as well, which I don't use anymore, the IRC, it's gone. My topic is the API bot.ai, conversational open API specs. The open API specs is also known as the Swagger, but now it's called open API. It's basically the same foundation, and it was transferred to run under Linux Foundation, and the development is there, and it's open on GitHub, so you can always participate in it. But it's a good thing to actually document REST APIs. And yeah, API bot. Well, yeah. First of all, API bot. The target group is the developers. That's obvious. So we have a scope for whom we are actually building this for. It's not for everyone. It's not for someone from the street to actually do anything with it. No, it's targeted directly to API consumers, and that's it. It's a still beta level product. It's not finalized. We're gathering more experiences from developers actually how it should, what direction should it actually go, and what should be done with it. And we're now gathering more and more developers to actually try it out. For that purpose, we have a free tier, so you can add your own API, one of the APIs there for free, and otherwise use it as freely as much as you like. But we need more feedback because this was started, I think it was February when we started to have the idea of this API bot, and then we implemented it in 3 or 4 weeks, and we've been running it for a while now. The funny thing is that this Chris Callahan, probably one of the design gurus or something, is happy about the rise of chatbots because, in his opinion, the user experience has been more focused on the UI level when we've been using the graphical user interfaces, and when these chatbots are coming more and more, the focus is turning more on the affordance, feedback orientation, learnability, and so on. So the basic and foundational parts of the user experience itself, instead of the UI and making it look pretty. That's one of the things. What is one of the driving forces about the bots, probably complementing some of the stuff that Antti told us previously, is the opportunities that actually the messaging apps have surpassed the social networks some time ago already. So we more use the chats than actually the social networks otherwise. So that's one of the reasons why we also started to think about the chatbot for APIs. And then, how many of you actually uses Slack in some form? Basically everyone. Yeah. These are the figures that I took yesterday from a tracking site of these chat-based team environments, and there's probably about 60,000 teams now on Slack, 5 million daily active users, and the Slack is just one of the environments. There's plenty of it. As you know, there's Flowdog, and there's even the latest but not the least is the Microsoft Teams, which has just entered the area. And there's a lot of them to actually choose from, but they operate basically the same way. It's the same offering with different packaging, and some of them have threaded conversations, some of them don't. But anyway, a lot of developers are living inside these kind of chat-based environments nowadays, more and more. It's a bold statement, but anyway, it's a modern version of IRC. It's just transferred to the IRC kind of discussion is transferred to browsers or applications themselves. At least to me, it was easy to transfer from there. It's the same idea, and a lot of bots were built in IRC environments, and the same stuff is happening now also in the browser-based applications as well. So it's a place where a lot of developers normally use their daily activities. One of the interesting points was given by one of the competitors of our company. It's the HQ, and they formulated this fancy-looking, let's say, formula for calculating some kind of costs. I'm not going to talk about that, and I'm not saying that I disagree, but I don't even agree with it. I didn't have a time to look at it because what caught my eye was the image, the picture that they have put out there. And in their estimate is that the technological integration costs are going down, but what actually is going up is the support part of it. So how do you actually support the onboarding of APIs is something that is not going to go down over time. And that's one of the opportunities or the driving forces of building API bots. The other thing closely related to support is the onboarding, as it was mentioned. And one of the things that I every morning think about, and the last thing I think about when I'm going to sleep, is the onboarding of APIs, because it's a bit different compared to different products themselves. Because onboarding the API is the focus is normally more or less the technical people, and you need to provide a different kind of tools and aiding elements to actually get them easily on board. It's different. Developers don't want to tell me if I'm wrong. Developers hate reading the documentation at first. They want to get started right away, and that's probably the one major mistake companies do at this point, that they write extensive documentation with a lot of information, a lot of details, and at that point they think that, yeah, I've done my onboarding. That's a big fail. The newcomer of the API shouldn't touch the documentation. That's the rule number one. You have to provide the onboarding somehow else. The other thing is that actually, when you're considering the functional APIs, not the data APIs, so it's some kind of functional APIs that actually do something for the developer, that market is growing rapidly, and there's more and more competition all the time. And what I'm telling to the clients who are building the APIs, actually they have 3 minutes time to convince the actual developer when they arrive to the API. Because the developer might have 4 or 5 APIs to look at and to select from. And whichever of these actually can give a hint that I can give you easy access, code examples, and self-service registration, automated creation of API keys if necessary, the developer is going to go that way. Even though the other API might be better in functions or something else. But the developer is prone to go the easy way, because developers are lazy bastards. Now, being lazy is not a bad thing. That's normal that we do. We want to find the easy way to actually get the problem solved. That's it. And so basically the idea is that when the developer comes to API page or something else, which is actually describing the API and everything else, there's 3 seconds time that actually the developer actually makes a first decision. In 3 seconds, you can actually read the title and the subtitle, and based on that, developer actually decides, am I going to go any deeper or not? That's the first barrier. Then you have 30 seconds to actually give the developer access to try out the API, how it actually performs, what are the responses, perhaps some kind of simple calls that are most used in your API. You can provide that in the browser directly for them to try out. They want to see it. They want to try it out. And in 3 minutes, they have to have that code, possibly the copy-paste code or something else, in their own code. So they're running it from their application in 3 minutes. That's the current trend and requirement in global level. That's the vision and that's the goal. How many of the companies actually can perform that well is a different. And the API bot actually, it's more supporting those users, API consumers who have gone over the barrier. So without, instead of directing them to extensive documentation, you provide them a chatbot actually for getting more information about the API. So documentation is going backwards and other means are going forwards. But at the same time, there are opportunities, of course, to actually provide the chatbot directly for the onboarding as a first step as well. That's one option as well. But I see that most value is in here when the teams are working with the APIs. They want to know more, and they are probably in Slack or some other chatbot environment, and then they don't need to jump to a different page or anything else. Just ask the bot. That's the idea of the API bot. And that's how it actually looked some weeks ago. This is an old picture actually. It's from the Slack environment. We use the Slack as the test environment for it. And there's the current product owner, Philip, from our company, testing it out, and it's responding with morning, blah, blah, blah. And there's a brief introduction that what is this API bot about. But that's, in my opinion, that shouldn't be any longer or anything else, because the idea of chatbot is that if you don't need to read anything, you start using it. What is lacking from here? And this was verified today with Marika, that there should be one more line actually, and that's the how to get actually started. What's the initial step to do now? And after that's actually the bot starts responding and suggesting to you actually stuff. That's missing from it, and it's gonna change probably next week because I'm gonna kick the product owner's ass today.
Okay.
And one of the it's not the background of the system is natural language processing, but we decided to go with the IRC kind of approach, which is more like a command line interface kind of a mixture of how you actually ask things from the bot. So it's like a list APIs, and here's a failure, and that's a success. After that, the machine learning was actually taught that actually whatever comes in caps lock, it doesn't matter. So we learned by using it, and then it listed the API that actually was added to the bot's repository before the question. And then we decided we had to use, actually, we defined the context for the further discussions or with the bot. So we use bed store, and I want to know more about the bed store itself. Okay, then you can actually get more information from the bot. And now the bot actually knows that we're using the bed store, and we want to show the objects. What are in the API? What are the objects used in the API? And it lists the objects defined, and then we added the buttons as well. That was discussed previously, so we added the buttons as well. So the developer can click one of the items and get the order data model for there and see what it actually is. And that doesn't look too pretty yet, but we'll get better. It's formatting stuff anyway. Yeah, in this case, the user selected the pet object itself. And there's an example of that data model. And so on. It continues on and on and on. And that's how you change the API you want to know more about, and you continue discussing with the bot. You get information. And one of the items we want to inject there is the code examples for using the methods in the API, because that's what the developers probably want to see as well. If I want to list users in this API, how do I do it? That's one of the items we want to add there. But keep in mind that all the information at this moment in the bot is based on the open API spec defined by the API owner. And there's no code examples, but there are tools that actually we can generate code examples based on that machine readable API spec. So it's a doable step anyway. As I mentioned, we use the API.ai service as the artificial intelligence, or is it an AI or not? That can be debated. But anyway, it's a intention-driven engine behind the solution, and it's the front end for the chatbot itself. So there are intents in the user interface of the API.ai, which actually are information about what are the users asking for, what are they after, and these are the guesses. And we need to teach the AI all the time that what actually was meant by the developer who was asking for this kind of specific information about the API. So it's not learning by itself, but we are actually teaching it on the way we actually try it out. And another example from the API.ai user interface, where we actually, what kind of information we see from the data and how we process it on the way as we go forward. So it's a pretty simple tool. We evaluated a lot of similar tools or solutions, middleware solutions for the bot, but this was considered by the product owner as the most easy way to go forward with minimal costs and to actually try out the concept and to build it as fast as possible. Of course, you will need additional component, and that's we built on Django, the backend part of it actually, where the information collection happens. So the API.ai doesn't know anything about the open API specs. So we need to have another API actually which goes through the information, gets the information back to the bot. And then that API AI pushes it to the Slack itself. So there are different layers in that. We decided to go with Django, and Django because the developer we engaged with this project was most familiar with Django, and that's it, nothing else. Go as lean as possible and easy as possible was our aim. And if you want to try it out, it was mentioned already that we have a free tier. Actually, you can always bring your own API there, and it goes basically that you point your open API spec of the API to the bot, and that's it. Then you're done. But if you want to use more, then you have to pay. But it's provided the first free tier for one API. And to try it out, you don't need to have an API. You just contact us, and we provide the information. You get into the Slack, and you can try out the existing APIs there and fool around with it, and that's beneficial for us. And we learn more about what should be done and how it should be done. And if you have time and you have the energy, please send us more detailed feedback or ideas, either from email or contact me in Twitter directly and give me the feedback. And that's one option as well. But anyway, we need more information how to go forward now. That's basically it. I'm not gonna go with the live demonstration. That's the next step, because that's next time when we have finalized a few more steps, and then I can actually in the next meetup I can actually give you a live demo for it. But at this point, I'm not yet confident enough. It's perfect for internal use, but it's not perfect yet for YouTube presentation. Any ideas, comments? Which one of you is actually a developer? You two? No? You are? What do you think?
I was
yeah, I noticed that. That's why I'm asking you. I'm the teacher. no, sorry. But free to speak. Does it make any sense?
I guess this is one of those things where you need to just try it out and sort of, by using it, you sort of fall in love with it. So, maybe hard to like theoretically.
What's the number one question in your mind regarding the API bot?
I mean, after you go and figure out APIs and using them, like, what's the benefit if you already can just do it yourself, especially using one of the platforms?
If you learn an API, APIs do have life cycles.
Yeah, they do.
They change.
Yeah.
And if you do a lot of work with different APIs, you don't store that information in your head anymore. You want to get assurance or something that what was the data model of this API, and then you get it. So it's a memory backup in some of the cases.
I think there is this question that is it like for those people that are just like haven't even seen the API before, or is it actually better for those people who have like frequent users of that specific API and are kind of like, okay, what was that thing? But then there is the question that, okay, what I've seen in real life developers when they try to find any APIs that I'm managing somehow is that they have like the first thing that they may die on is that they don't even find the API documentation, or if they find the kind of page on it, so then it's so tricky that they have to kind of navigate, they have to authenticate, they have to navigate, they have to like subscribe and like God knows what sometimes to do to get access even to the basic documentation. That's of course the worst case scenario, but that does happen. So I think that if this would be maybe the use cases would be more clear, like finding the right API, finding the API, finding the endpoints that you actually need. But then I don't know if you refer to this as a platform, but the question is why would I use the kind of raw API or like code to connect to actually the API, because I could just click in the Azure or wherever platform and use the connectors there, or the API or where.
And see, it's servicing. I think it's who you're servicing. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. It's who you're servicing. So then there's also the scenario, like you said, the life cycles change and this and that changes. So for example, if I build a solution for you, that solution is for now. In a year, when the API changes and you want to redo your product, like that, you don't have to, if I built it to get the data you want and that underlying thing changes. So am I essentially putting myself out of a paycheck? Yeah. So it depends on the like robustness of the product.
But yeah, I know there are fancy products, API portals, and whatever tools you want to call, but the world doesn't live there yet. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, you're right.
Majority of the APIs are not on those platforms, and it will take, I'm not going to say years, but a long to actually get most of the APIs in such systems. And before that, you need to have some kind of tools to actually learn those and how to use them efficiently.
That is exactly right, and I was going to ask about kind of the publishing side.
Yeah.
Because that is one of those things that gives a lot of like developers headaches when they do need to engage with whatever management thing there is for those APIs, if there is any. So, but on the other hand, why would you do it with the chatbot then? Because you should and could build it as part of your deployment kind of pipeline. So who is the user group there that would do it that way? I'm not saying there isn't one, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'm the one to blame. I asked for this.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't have a direct answer now.
So like, I would love to have a chatbot that would set up the pipeline for the API publishing, but I mean.
That might be the next step. Upin.io is an API management platform, but APIbot.ai is a separate product. But we have had conversations about actually having this APIbot.ai actually being the tool for managing the API lifecycle and everything else. That's one of the items. But it requires a few more steps in our platform and the APIs in there to be developed. And after that, we can actually handle it here. So we decided to go this way. This was easy. Take the API specs, which are YAML or JSON, easy to parse, and build an initial version of the bot like this, and then expand it to another one. But let's see, I agree. That's one of the items. So it's like a DevOps tool for API management.
That would be a cool interface, especially if you're like, you just talk like, I'm using this API to do this. If any changes, it's going to let me know. I'm already in Slack. It's like, oh.
Well, that's one of the features of the API management platform, that actually it gives the API owners information based on alerts and everything to Slack. But at this time, it would go with the bot. So it can go two ways anyway. But anyway, that's one of the options. Good one. That confirmation about one of my business use cases that makes sense. Yeah. API management, DevOps kind of way. Good. Excellent.
Yeah, what about then if let's say we would use that for some APIs? So one interesting thing for me would be to sort of, if it could facilitate for getting the feedback from some people who are using it. So I feel at least like it's not simple to give feedback on the API, and they probably just do it somewhere.
Exactly. Another feature to be added there, that's part of the API platforms or portals normally, but the idea here should be the same, that whatever you can do in the portal, you should be able to do it in the bot.
Well, I think that's where everything's going, because
Yeah.
bot is just another interface. Like
Yes.
Essentially, it's
Yes.
just another interface.
And it's an interface that it's available in different environments. Slack is
Yeah.
one. You can have this, for example, directly in the Facebook Messenger if you like. So you can plug it into different places easily. That's one of the features of the API.ai, but it's not difficult to build from scratch either, but it was built in there.
So in that case, I think it's based on audience then. Like for example, like developers, I would say they would more like that interface in Slack.
Yeah.
And it would be a different chatbot. It's a DevOps chatbot at that point.
It needs to have a kind of different
Yeah,
personality.
like you need to.
It has to be like Chuck Norris.
Yeah,
or
like the
the-
guy I'm talking to at Facebook is not the same
Yeah,
guy.
that's exactly. You can have customer support in the Facebook chat, but you don't support developers at the Facebook
Yeah, you
Messenger.
don't need to, I don't think.
But then there is the kind of different user groups, like product managers, for example. Like
That's one.
I need to
Facebook.
like figure out, well, maybe not Facebook, but like
some other system anyway.
yeah, but another system, or at least talking in another way, because you have a lot of users who are not essentially technical. I mean, they might have an IT abbreviation in their title, but they are not devs.
Yeah.
And they need to understand how they behave, what are the capabilities of the API, what information, what attributes are there, and that kind of stuff. So I think that is kind of an interesting user group that might be something.
Yeah, definitely target groups are the developers and the so-called API managers and the people above them. They need to have an overview and understanding of the systems and what they're actually doing at some level.
Now that I understand the idea, well, it might be a bit off the topic, but I would like, when I'm working with the API, to see lots of examples sometimes. And sometimes there are some examples provided in the documentation. Sometimes I need to Google and see who used it and who used it this way. So maybe you can provide that as just even a link, for example. Can be a list of the links, like if you are using Node.js, these links, like some examples of using this API.
Yeah, for example,
this can be something on top of what even the original documentation is providing.
Yeah, that's at the moment we are forced to go that way, because adding any kind of, let's say, code snippets or anything else in the open API spec is like a pain in the ass. It's impossible, and when you think about the value chain that is going, that's actually resulting to the open API spec, it's so automated that you don't easily inject there anything, and on top of that, whatever you have to provide there, additional information has to be sort of human approach anyway. It's not something that you pull out of the code.
But it also is language dependent, because if you are going with Node, you want to have those NPM libraries, and you would want to have those ones that are kind of the most recent and updated and have the most downloads and whatever. I mean, like there's this whole kind of, there was that example in one of the slides earlier that what is the trade that I would be preferring to take that, and do I need to click many things and answer many questions before I get the trade? But in this case, like, what is my preferred NPM library to use for this API? What is the recommended one?
Well, that's information we actually can collect from the users of these services and build profiles,
just use the
profiles of them and so on. But I agree. This is just the beginning, just a small step, and to me, this discussion actually encourages us to go to the directions we have already considered, and a few additional viewpoints were given as well. So thanks for your feedback. This was enormously valuable for us. Good. So, but if you want to try it out, just go to apibot.ai and contact us from there, and we'll help you forward. In the future, it will be a lot easier. But at this point, we put the resources on developing the product itself instead of the onboarding yet. It's easy to automate, actually, get the auto invites and everything like that. Let's see. All right, thank you. And that was basically the last presentation. And then we have the question of who do we give at least one of the Amazon gift cards? I saw you as one of the most active participants here, and
I'm sorry I got up and left.
No. But the time that you were here, you were actively participating, and on top of that, what's your name?
I'm just Keith.
All right, might be our contact across the big lake in the States. So let's see what actually happens. But I would actually vote that actually one of the $25 Amazon gift cards goes to you. Anyone objecting that? No. Does the crowd feel that someone else is deserving one of the $25 Amazon gift cards? Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Well, I will put it into good use.
Excellent. So we have a decision. People in the back are gonna get the gift cards. Just drop me an email, and I'll provide it as a backlink for you to code for the gift card. Anyway. All right. Excellent. And let's see what happens after the summer. And there will be more chatbots and other meetups coming on, probably here as well in the same place or in the near neighborhood. But we'll figure it out with Antti and the guys from Microsoft. Excellent. Thanks.